the Dogpoint Podcast. Hi guys, welcome to episode 9 of the Dogpoint Podcast. In today's episode, I would like to get a little bit into messages that you sent me and how I can help you be on the same page in helping you how to formulate your messages so that you can get the answer that you're seeking. So for instance, one of the most received messages that I get is, "Hi, I want my dog trained." Okay, that's great, but trained for what? Do you have problems with obedience? Do you have problems with behavior? Do you want the dog trained for a specific purpose? It's not clear, so it's impossible to answer this question, right? Just like the second one, how much for training? Well, again, I don't know your dog. I don't know how fast your dog is learning. I don't know what purpose you want the dog trained for, how many problems you've encountered with the dog. Are there any behavior problems? All of which will influence, how much it will cost. So, guys, you have to be a little more specific when you make the first contact. Okay, just, I have an ex-dog, this gender, this age, would like him obedience trained in basic obedience. Those are things where I can give you an answer right away. I can tell you, okay, this is the price per session, and this is the options you have, and this is the price. So then I can, formulate a plan for your dog. Okay. Another question that we get hit with a lot is, how many sessions does it take? Well, the training is based on the fact that you practice in between training sessions. And I have zero influence over how much you practice with your dog every day. Okay, so how am I estimating for you how many sessions it will take? A lot of these sessions build on each other, so it requires you to do a certain amount of work. And if you're not doing it, it will take longer, because then I can't really move on with the dog in the way I would like to in order to get the results for you. Okay, so you play a pivotal role in this. I can't answer this question in a vacuum. It's near impossible to estimate how long it will take. Which is the next question. How long will training take? Well, again, it depends on how much you work with your dog. The more you work with your dog, the less you need me. That is the simple reality of this, right? The training sessions with me, especially the virtuals, are designed to teach you to work with your dog. If you then don't work with your dog, it will take longer, because I'm only there once a week. A lot of that control is in your hands, and you have to do your part. And then we have to figure out what purpose, right? Which is a huge subject that goes into so many different variants and so many different details that, we then, after the first contact, we then have to discuss, okay, what do you have the dog for? Or what do you want the dog trained for? Okay? Because you have your average pet dog who needs some basic obedience, maybe a little behavior modification here and there, maybe some reactivity, due to lack of socialization. So we have to do some of that. And then you're pretty much good to go. However, if you want something more detailed, like, let's say, a service dog, now we're talking a lot of different things. Because depending on what type of service the dog is providing, if the dog is providing a medical service, for instance, like dogs that will warn you before you get a seizure and that type of thing. So now we have to get the dog through extreme socialization, because the dog has to become completely environmentally neutral so that the dog is not distracted from its task. Okay? So that is socialization in any conceivable type of environment, which means there is a lot of travel involved. You have to move around to different areas with the dog to socialize the dog. It's a huge effort. By the end of training a service dog, oftentimes they have close to 2,000 contact hours, which then also makes it very expensive. You have to desensitize the dog to all sorts of noises that are not everyday noises, like, for instance, beeping medical equipment or a squeaky wheel on a tripod, on a tripod for dribs. Some of those dogs also require somewhat of a natural gift, so to speak, of being ready to do this task. Oftentimes, dogs that alert to seizures are dogs that naturally do this, that suddenly stare at you or that put their paw on you because they sense that something is wrong. They're not sure what it is, but every time you're about to have a seizure, your body undergoes changes and the dogs pick up on it and they try to do something to get your attention. Training just shapes it and makes it more reliable. But those dogs naturally have what it takes to alert you. Then you have companion dogs. Similar to the pet dogs, some basic obedience, socializing in different environments, and exercises that really deepen the bond. Because a lot of times when people ask for a companion dog, it's because they're drawing some emotional support out of the dog. And I don't want to use the term emotional support dog because it's been so overused and oftentimes in a fake way that I don't really want to, use that term too much. But that is what boils down to. People would suffer from anxiety, for instance, that want their dog with them at all times because it keeps them calm, it keeps them grounded, that type of thing. So they will have to undergo some more socialization than the average pet because you want to be able to take this dog into more environments, especially, in some countries where you can take your dog to many places, from pet stores to home improvement stores and so forth. So people take their dogs everywhere. And that also means that you have to socialize the dog in those environments as part of the training so that they don't become reactive in a store all of a sudden because something spooks them. Right? So you have to test the dogs for this. You have to train the dogs for this. So all this influences length of training time as well as cost. And then you go into the more specialized areas, like somebody saying, I want my dog to be a personal protection dog. Okay, great. So first we examine, does your dog have the genetic makeup that it takes to do this type of job? Because not every dog, because it's a certain breed, it can do the job. That is a false belief. And then we have to lay out a plan because personal protection is not just the dog trying to keep people away from you. You have to also be able to go into an environment where the dog is completely neutral because nothing is going on. There is no threat there. So the dog can't be grounding off on everybody he encounters. Okay, so you have to teach the dog that. You have to teach the dog how to deal with multiple attackers. You have to, teach the dog to give you options, whether you want the dog to, at that point in time, passively guard you and just scan the area, or if you want to actively guard him by staying at your side but barking at a person that behaves off in front of you, or if you want the dog at the end of a 6-foot leash, moving in a semicircle, just keeping people away from you. Those are different options and they all have to be part of the toolbox if you want a personal protection dog. That is a lot of work. It requires an insane amount of practice. And it is also costly as it requires multiple decoys that have to be hired for this job. Okay, so that is a little different. Personal protection is so many hours of work that people get the wrong idea. And then once you lay it out for somebody and you also lay out the associated cost for such a dog, then oftentimes people no longer want a personal protection dog because they look at the cost and say, oh, I didn't know all this was required. And the answer is yes. If you are a person that deals with a threat level and you need a dog to help protect you, then yes, then the dog has to be able to do all those things. Otherwise you have no way of being able to rely on the dog. And that is all part of what you need to consider when you ask somebody or ask a trainer, I want my dog trained. All that goes into it. So you can appreciate now, having heard this, that when we see a question like this, we don't know how to answer it. You may not know that all of this goes into training a dog, but to us, there's the natural reaction is train your dog to do what? It's important to know. So I just want to use this episode to educate dog owners before they contact a trainer, to have all the information ready and also have a plan formulated in their mind as to, okay, this is the dog that I want, this is what I need, this is the type of training that we're looking at. So I know it's expensive, but to as a reference, if you're looking at a personal protection dog, and that includes the dog, the cost of the dog, in the US, you're looking somewhere at $45,000 to $70,000 US. It is not a cheap endeavor, and a lot of it is the training portion. Getting a dog with good genetics is expensive, yes, but that's only part of it. Then the real work starts, because the dog has to start training from puppy to imprint the dog in a way that's conducive to the job it will do later. So it's not just a matter of picking a dog from a shelter and get going. There's way more that goes into it if you want it done correctly. And then, of course, we have people who are canine handlers and work, let's say, in the police force, who want a dog trained. So now they are different from the personal protection dogs in many aspects. Because in most departments, the dog is a dual-purpose dog, which means it does some form of detection, whether that is narcotics or explosives, and apprehension. So it has either one of the detections and apprehension that they want for the dogs, because it's cheaper than single-purpose dogs, because then they just need to get more dogs and hire more canine handlers, which costs the department more money. It's the more efficient way of doing things and less confusing to the dog, but it's more expensive that way. And in a police dog, so you have to teach the dog the detection part of it. That in itself is hours upon hours. And then the apprehension, similar to the personal protection dog, the dog has to go through a whole series of training sessions that lead up to a calm, firm grip in the bite and so forth. And a lot of decoy time. But the dog also has to be able to jump over a fence to follow a suspect, which the personal protection dog does not have to do. So that's where some of the differences come in, right? The personal protection dog is not a detection dog. His sole purpose is to protect you, be calm on your side, and switch on when needed or when told to, and then switch off also when told to. The police dog can calm down when he's back in the vehicle. Your personal protection dog has to calm down and switch off because you say so. Because you with this dog in public, and you're not a police officer, you're a private entity. And so you can't have your dog go crazy all the time or for half an hour after the dog was protecting you. So those are fundamentally different training portions that go into those dogs. A police dog also has to be able to track a suspect. So even if they're not in hot pursuit and they're not seeing the suspect, they have to be able to follow the suspect's scent, because they would have chased the dog and got the suspect and gotten the scent. So now they have to be able to follow that scent. Personal protection dog does not need that. That is not part of the job spec. So that dog does not have to do this type of work. And so in 15 minutes, I gave you so many different areas as to why we need more information when you make the contact in order to answer your question. I mean, you feel free to ask the questions the way you are accustomed to, but then we have to come back with a question again before we can give an answer. And to me, that is just inefficient, right? So you ask a question and you get back an answer, or you get back a message, I should say, that is also a question. And I can see that getting frustrating for the client. But I just ask you a question and you come back with asking me a question. Yes, because we need to. We cannot answer that question in a vacuum. It is impossible. We need to know the purpose of the dog, the age of the dog, the gender of the dog, the breed of the dog. Because not every breed, you might want the dog for a specific task, but the breed is not suitable for it for whatever reason. It makes no sense having a little Yorkshire Terrier and want it to be a personal protection dog, just to give you some extreme example. Or you're not taking a Presa Canario and want him as a medical alert dog. Because anywhere where you walk into a hospital with a dog that size, people jump on their beds because of how the dog is looking. So it has to make sense. I'm not saying that a Presa Canario cannot be a medical alert dog. If he has that knack of detecting your seizure before you get it, or if your heart rate is too high and your dog alerts you, great. But you want to be careful where you take him, because nobody's going to just believe you when you say, oh, he's friendly, because people have an idea that this breed is not the most friendly. And so you're going to run into some problems there. So maybe a less threatening dog is more suitable for this. You're now equipped to ask your question, get an answer immediately by providing some base information to us. And it makes life easier for you. It makes life easier for us as trainers, for me as a trainer. And we can get to your goal faster. So I see a lot of trainers that complain about this and say, yeah, look at this guy, or look at this question. How I'm going to answer that. But nobody is putting it out there and trying to educate dog owners about it. So this is what I'm attempting to do here. It is not your fault. You don't know. You are not a trainer. You don't have all that information. So somebody needs to teach you that when you ask about dog training, that you provide more base information. Okay? So it's something we just need. There you have it. So you're better equipped now. I hope you learned something out of this. I hope I was of some assistance. If I did, just, hit the like button. You know what to do. And share the podcast so that other dog owners can also do the same. Even if it's not us they're contacting and they might contact somebody else, but at least there is some level of education that took place. So I leave you with that and see you in the next episode.